There's a strange paradox in life. The more we try to control everything around us, the more trapped we feel. Control looks like safety. Planning feels responsible. Overthinking appears smart. But inside, a quiet storm begins. Carl Jung said something profound. The ego seeks control because it mistrusts life. Carl Jung believed that the impulse to control isn't strength, it's fear. It's the ego trembling at the edge of the unknown, desperately trying to maintain order in a world that refuses to be predictable. Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to keep life in line, the more it slips between your fingers? That's not a coincidence. That's the ego fighting its greatest enemy: uncertainty. Why the ego tries to control everything. According to Jung, the ego is the part of you that says, I must know the outcome. I must avoid mistakes. I must stay safe. But this ego is only a tiny part of your entire psyche, just a small torchlight in a giant dark forest. It can see something, but not everything. When it becomes the center of your life, you disconnect from the self, the deeper, wiser, intuitive part of you that can see far beyond the ego's narrow flashlight beam. This disconnection breeds fear, because the ego cannot handle the unknown. It confuses uncertainty with danger. It interprets silence as threat. And so you plan, overthink, analyze, double-check, worry, all while believing you're preventing disaster. Yet what actually happens? The more you resist uncertainty, the more life resists you. The illusion that worry keeps you safe. We all do this. We convince ourselves, if I worry, I care. If I prepare for the worst, I'll be ready. If I control everything, nothing can go wrong. But worry is not protection. Worry is noise. Jung said anxiety is the shadow of consciousness, the signal of a broken inner balance. It's not the world that frightens us, but our interpretation of the world. Think about this. How many scenarios have you created in your mind that never happened? How many conversations have you replayed that never occurred? How many fears have you lived through that weren't real? The mind loves drama. The ego loves noise. Anxiety loves movement without progress. It's like running on a treadmill with no stop button. The moment you fight anxiety, it fights back. Jung said something powerful. What you resist not only persists, it grows stronger. When you fight anxiety, it multiplies. When you try to control life, it becomes chaotic. When you cling, everything slips. Your body knows this long before your mind does. Your shoulders tighten. Your breath becomes shallow. Your heartbeat speeds up. Your sleep becomes restless. Your body reacts to thoughts as if they are threats. Because of the ego, they are. It doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It reacts to a story the same way it reacts to a real event. And that is why letting go feels impossible. Why silence scares us more than chaos. We run from silence. Phones, music, scrolling, notifications, anything to avoid being alone with ourselves. But silence is the only place where truth appears. Jung called this individuation, the process of returning to your own center. It's not mystical. It's not abstract. It's simply the moment you stop being a passenger in your own life. In silence, the ego becomes quiet. A deeper voice, the voice of the self, finally speaks. And unlike the ego, the self never shouts. It never threatens. It never panics. It simply knows. Children teach us what adults forget. Look at a child. They don't think about the result. They don't fear losing control. They don't calculate every step. They simply live. They fall, rise, laugh, try again. They don't plan how to play. They just play. A child hasn't burdened themselves with the ego's need to predict everything. Jung said true maturity begins when we regain this ability to be in the flow with awareness. Not careless, not reckless, just present. Control smothers spontaneity. And when spontaneity dies, intuition dies with it. Synchronicity. Life aligns when you stop interfering. Jung introduced a fascinating concept: synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that happen when you align with your inner self. Think of all the times. A solution appeared when you stopped pushing. A person showed up at the perfect moment. An opportunity arrived when you finally let go. Something you forced suddenly worked when you relaxed. We call it luck, but Jung said it's the natural order of the psyche. Life flows when you stop blocking it. When you loosen the grip, things naturally fall into place, not because life suddenly changes, but because you stop resisting. Anxiety isn't the problem. Your identification with it is. Here's the truth most people never hear. You are not your anxiety. You are the one who observes anxiety. Jung called this the observing self, the part of you that can step back and say, "Oh, I'm worried right now. My mind is spiraling. This fear is trying to protect me." The moment you observe it, you create distance, and distance is power. What controls you when you're fused with it loses power when you watch it. Like watching clouds pass instead of standing in the storm. Facing the shadow, the part of you that creates anxiety. Jung believed anxiety comes from the shadow, all the parts of yourself you don't want to acknowledge. Your fear, your doubt, your weakness, your exhaustion, your envy, your hidden desires. We hide them because they don't match the image we show the world, the persona. But the more we hide, the heavier the mask becomes. And the heavier the mask, the louder the anxiety. Because the psyche wants wholeness, not perfection. Anxiety rises whenever we pretend. Letting go is not weakness, it's psychological maturity. Most people misunderstand letting go. They think it means surrender, giving up, becoming passive. But letting go is action without force. It means acting without fear, moving without tension, deciding without panic, trusting without needing control. Imagine a drowning person. The more they panic, the deeper they sink. But when they stop resisting, their body naturally floats. Your psyche works exactly the same way. The moment you stop gripping, you rise. The ego says, fight. The self says, observe. Inside you, two voices exist. The ego voice, loud, anxious, demanding, controlling, afraid of uncertainty. The self's voice, quiet, steady, wise, present, trusting in the process. Jung said clarity comes from hearing the right voice. When you follow the ego, you live in fear. When you follow the self, you live in flow. Removing the mask. Who are you without control? Ask yourself, who am I without my roles? Who am I without my plans? Who am I without my fears? The ego panics at these questions because it believes, if I don't control, I'll disappear. But that's not true. It's the mask that disappears, not you. And beneath that mask lives the real you, alive, whole, capable, intuitive, calm. The moment the mask cracks, anxiety weakens, because anxiety was only guarding a role, not your truth. The miracle that happens when you stop interfering, when you let go, truly let go, something incredible happens. Your mind becomes quiet. Your intuition becomes sharp. Your decisions become easier. Your timing becomes better. Your relationships become clearer. Your energy returns. And life begins to align, not magically, not instantly, but naturally. Because the inner resistance dissolves. The waves calm. The water becomes clear. And you finally see the path beneath. Jung said the psyche always seeks balance. If you stop interrupting it, you cannot control the river, but you can learn its rhythm. Life is not meant to be forced. It is meant to be participated in. The more you grip, the more life slips. The more you trust, the more life reveals its order. Like a river, life carries you where you need to go. Not always where you want, but always where you grow. Security doesn't come from control. It comes from presence. When you live in the present, anxiety fades. Because anxiety cannot survive in the now, only in the what if. Everything falls into place when you stop interfering. Letting go isn't a sign of weakness. It's the highest form of wisdom. Life doesn't require your fear. It doesn't require your overthinking. It doesn't require your constant control. It only requires your participation. Stop gripping and the path appears. Stop forcing and solutions arise. Stop running and clarity emerges. When you stop worrying, the world doesn't fall apart. It finally falls into place.